Good morning. My name is Johnny Alexander. I'm one of the co-hosts here at Writers Chat. And we're so happy to have you with us, whether you're here kind of hiding off screen right now or watching one of our replays. I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, Melissa Stroh and Brandy Bro, and I'm going to turn it over to Brandy so she can introduce our very special guest for today.
We do have a special guest. I am really pleased to introduce Jeanne Marie Leach. Jeanne Marie Leach is a multi-published Christian fiction author, a writing and editing coach, and she has been a freelance editor for 17 years. She's a staff editor at Elk Lake Publishing Incorporated, and she teaches fiction editing courses online through the Penn Institute, that's Proofreaders and Editors Network. She has taught workshops through ACFW, SoCal Christian Writers Conference, and PennCon. Jeanne, we are thrilled to have you today. Thank you so much for coming. And Jeanne is going to talk to us about under and overwriting.
Hi guys, thank you very much for having me. I was telling Brandy just a little bit ago that when she told me she would had a spot for me and would like for me to talk about over and underwriting, I said sure. As soon as I I got off of the internet, I'm like, what did I do? What does this mean? But I was able to, calm myself down and pray about it, and the Lord just boom, like you got this. And so I do have a lot of material that I've developed down through the years that I use in my coaching and mentoring and teaching. And so this is just picking out bits and pieces that and putting it under a different kind of topic. So over in underwriting, we'll just get started. This is we'll start with underwriting. One of the main things that I've noticed is, especially people I'm editing these days, I've got a current client who really needs all of this. So anyway, so this is what I mean. People are having trouble with some of these things. One of them is not giving enough details about the setting. You know that the setting is interconnected to the story details, but some writers will go overboard and go on and spend a lot of time mentioning like just a room. There was a picture on the back of the wall and it had this, and then you turn right and it had that. And it's like, that's not necessary. But you have to realize that you have to write your details of the setting in proportion with the importance of that setting to the storyline. But creating every person that's in any character that's in your book has to be somewhere in the world. They're somewhere on earth. Where are they at that moment? You don't have to have the whole grand scheme because, gradually you get the setting, the whole idea. You don't do it all at once. But this is part of characterization. The setting is part of the characterization because where they're at, what they're doing, how they're doing it, it's all interconnected. When you don't describe that immediate setting, you end up with talking heads against a green screen. Now, you've heard of the green screen, so let me show you one. There you go. What's this lady doing? Where is she? So I'm going to give you 20 seconds to write. Tell me, where is she? Go. Are we getting anybody?
You can put your
Where is
answers in the
she
chat.
actually, or an
Where
idea
is
of
she?
where we want
Yeah,
her to
I mean,
be?
she's sitting and she's reading a tablet. I mean,
She's in a liminal space right now. That's
exactly. Is she
is.
getting ready? Is she getting ready to maybe tell storyteller at the library? So there's books behind her and things. Or is she sitting on her front porch on a rug, just getting ready to, you know, talk to mom or something like that? Where is she? Where in the world is this woman? Because it's one woman. She could be anywhere. I just want to see if you get some ideas.
Sally
She
says
could be floating on a carpet.
Well, there you go. She could be.
Sally says she's in her backyard, the lush green lawn.
Nice. I like that. I like that. Yeah. Anybody else?
I pictured her in her living room, sitting in front of her couch on the floor.
Yeah. I pictured her at a university out on the front lawn. I don't know why. She does have sandals on, so that's okay. All right, well, let's keep going. If you don't go deep enough into a character's thoughts and emotions, I have the person I'm editing right now um, does that. She just doesn't she doesn't take us inside these people. It's just like, oh, she said this excitedly. It's like, but what does excited look like on that character? Not all characters look and act the same with excitement. I know one author, and I know her personally because she lived down the road from me, that every one of her characters would go when they were excited. But that's because that's what she did. She does that. So that's not unusual. But so every character acts differently. They always act, think, and feel and talk. So you have to be sure to uh, use these things. Show the reader. You've heard of show, don't tell. But I'm specifically going to talk about the ly adverbs because there's so many different ways to show and tell. But the ly adverbs really zap your story of its ability to show and the description that you can give. Say, for instance, wow, she said excitedly. How excited is she? How did she actually look or react? What was she doing when she said that? What made her excited? What does excited look like on this woman? So instead, you can use body language, facial expressions, the way she says it. If she's, I can't believe it. Wow. How is she? What is this? So instead, you can say, wow, she said. Her eyes grew wide open as the pocket watch itself, and her mouth dropped open. I mean, that right there isn't much, but it's enough to show us that she's just going, that's how excited she was. Um, so you have to be able to show your readers, let them see her in their mind, because as you tell your story, they're seeing it. They're putting this person. They've already described what she looks like, who she is. We know who she is. But now you're getting into her excitement, her quirks. Does she do this? I don't know very many people who do, but you never know. But make your characters, don't just describe by she did it excitedly. She did it. I don't know. I can't even come up with them off the top of my head. I didn't write it down. But um, another one that zaps. Now you've all heard of showing active and passive and things like that. But was isn't always necessarily the passive, because passive is a whole different thing in CMOS. Passive is where something is being done to something else, like the oh, how did they always do it in football games. The foot of such and such was hit this other guy and kicked him or whatever. It's like, no, the guy hit him with his foot, that kind of thing. So, but particularly is everywhere and usable. Very, very great, but it is a state of being verb. State of being, has been, was, were. These verbs are boring. Um, and in some Christian circles, you've probably heard this, the was is considered the main culprit that makes a sentence less descriptive. It is kind of true. Here's a couple ideas. Bobby was angry at his brother for telling their parents he was, you know what? Your pictures are covering the part of my words. Let me see if I can scoot it over. That he was nope, I didn't. Sorry. Ah, is it going up? Anyway, there we go. Never mind. So if I miss a word, it's because it's behind Melissa's head. That he was the one who caused the stain on the carpet. There wasn't enough time to think before she ran after John. The car was shiny. Bart was about to run after her when she turned around and looked in his eyes. It's all boring. You know what I mean? So let's see what could happen. There's nothing really wrong with those sentences, but the descriptive writing is lazy writing. You got to realize that. The basics. He was angry. Well, How does a person look when they're angry? Some people are, just, like my husband gets leech lips. That's what I call him. His whole family does this. When they're upset, their lips go, and you can tell they're upset. It's just different people have different ways of getting upset and doing things like that. To change flat writing into three-dimensional, you need going to alter the sentence. Sometimes it means expending it. I know you're supposed to use as few words as possible, but you also have to make it exciting, and show us what that person did when she was upset, or you could leave the sentence as it is, really, but it's just so much better, so much more alive if you can try not to do the was. Now, I did edit a book to about page 100 that didn't have a single was in it, not one. That meant that it was choppy. It was kind of tedious to read, to try to write an entire book without using was. So don't go and get rid of every was there was. Just try to think of things that you can describe a little bit better. So uh, here's some sentences, the same sentences. Here's one. Bobby was angry at his brother for telling his parents he was the one who caused the stain on the carpet. But, if Bobby is a kid like this age, Bobby frowned and stomped his foot. You little brat, you had no right to tell mom and dad that I spilled my juice on the rug. I'm going to wring your little stupid neck when I catch you. That's a lot better than Bobby was angry. Much better. And then the next one, whoops. There wasn't enough time to think before Anna ran after John. Well, you know, if it depends on how far away John was getting. In this case, he would have found out that he was, going to go get on in his car. So John left and Anna leaned against the door. A moment later, a car door closed. How could she let him go like this? She ran outside and down the sidewalk. John, I'm sorry. Please don't go. It's so much more expressive and tells you more what's going on. The car was shiny. Obviously, that is very boring. Doesn't tell you anything. You change it. He saw his reflection in the new candied apple red paint job, and the depth of the shine let him believe there had to be at least 10 coats of paint on the car. Now, from a guy's point of view, that's important. I wouldn't care less. I would just be excited about the shine. Maybe it's a difference in, what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in cars. I like them, but they're cars. But guys, they see stars in their eyes. So if it's a guy, get into what he thinks and what he's feeling about this car. Bart was about to run after her when she turned around and looked him in the eyes. That doesn't explain what he was thinking of. Bart's heart couldn't let her simply walk away like this. He wanted to go after her, but he couldn't make himself take that first step. She turned and looked him in the eyes, and at that moment he knew they would be together forever. Oh, that's so sweet. But it's more than just, he didn't know he was going to run after her, but he didn't. Another way of underwriting is not giving enough info about the characters themselves. This lady, actually, earlier this summer, I had I got one from the pen from Elk Lake. They sent me one that was supposed to be a middle age or young adult. If you don't tell the readers the character's age, you don't know anything about their physical, the height, how they dress, what do they do for a living. You don't know any of this. So I didn't know that the main character, she was like, oh, I want to talking kind of baby talk. Why they moved? Okay, they moved from a farm to the city. Why couldn't I bring my friends with me, Mom? At first, actually, she asked everybody in town. Practically, two chapters worth of this one girl just running around saying, why can't I bring my friends? They were her ducks. Okay, found that out after a little bit. Why can't I bring them? I don't understand. I love them. How can I? They're going to miss me. They need me. And then she went to her brother, same thing, went to everybody but mom. So I by the second chapter, I said, I don't know enough about children's young children's books. So I asked if I could be taken off the project. And though at that point the author said, but she's 12 years old. This isn't a children's, this is a young adult. And I'm like, 12 years old and she's acting like this. If you'd have told me right away, 12-year-old Anna did this, I would have been able to say, okay, hold on. We need to take her out of the children's and, make her a middle-aged kid, her middle school. Middle school kids are already trying to become adults. They're, they're, they don't, they want to be cool. They don't act that way. But I didn't know that. So I was off the project. But if it's an adult, you need to know what their hopes and dreams are. What's keeping them from attaining those dreams? Are they Christian? Where are they at in their spiritual journey? You don't have to sit there and explain, well, when she was such and such age, she had an accident and she didn't believe God. You don't have to do that. Just have her say, let me pray about that. Or I'm waiting on God for an answer. Just something. Or else to say, well, and I've seen this one a lot in Christian books. Well, I haven't talked to God in a long time. That's all. Chapter 1, let us know. Person is a Christian, not a practicing Christian. The person is a Christian, but a very staunch Christian. Just one or two things. Just throw it in there so we know who that person is spiritually. And then we need to know what the main conflict is that they're facing. Like this girl, the main conflict that she was facing, as far as I know, is why she couldn't bring her ducks to the city. That's not what the story's about. I'm certain of it, but that's all that there was in the first couple chapters. So those are important. Tell us right away things about this person. Drop it in. You can drop it in quite easily. Another last one is not giving appropriate clues as to time lapse and changing seasons. That's what I'm dealing with right now with this book. She'll say something like, Don grabbed his coat and left. Then the next sentence says, as he got off the bus, he did such as, I'm like, wait a minute. He was at home with his coat. Now he's getting off a bus. How much time has gone past? How long was the bus ride? How long did it take him to wait for the bus? Time has gone past and we don't know how much. So just one other word, one other sentence or something about, he caught the bus out front of his house and 10 minutes later he stepped off. Just keep the people involved. This person jumps so fast from one place to the next without telling me how long it got to get there. Is it now night? Did it take that long? Who knows? And the changing seasons, her seasons are so blurred. I'm trying to work with her on that. This is happening in California, and it's a current story. And there's two different stories going on at once. One is about it is a World War II, and they're talking about, you've probably heard of the code talkers. That they used Navajo to create a code that only they would know. Nobody in any other part of the world would have understand this code. And this one young man was asked to help with developing this code. Then you switch, and here's a whole different section about a Navajo family. And I imagine they're going to be involved in the code talking. So the thing is, this guy is in the city, and he is he's putting on a jacket, go catch the bus, and he's in college. He had an exemption, wasn't in serving in the war. He put on a jacket and he's fine. The lady over in the Navajo Nation was in winter. So that got confusing to me. And then one day this guy didn't even need a jacket, and the next day he was really freezing. So I didn't understand where how far apart they were. I do understand that California does get some snow, but I didn't know where, and I didn't understand how far apart they were. And anyway, I need to keep the readers involved in time and seasons, so that we can continue to see without starting to think, wait a minute, where in California is he? Um, Another thing, now we're going into overwriting. One, over explanation. That's a big one. I see that so many times in beginning authors' work. They're they're trying to tell you so much about what's going on. So there are four ways that authors can over explain. Okay, so the first one is telling the readers what the character is feeling, and and gives them. I'm now that's under Brandy's when what's that word? Can anybody see that? Gives the reader what they need to know. Character there. What the character gives the reader what they need to know. Just saying things like the oh yeah, like uh, okay, I have it written somewhere, but I didn't do it. John wanted to. Oh, okay. Here, I'll start with like an explanation. I can't believe that he did that, John said, uh, unbelievingly. I mean, you don't have to tell them that kind of stuff. They know. Let your readers give them credit for understanding. Readers are readers and they understand things. So all you had to do is, just say the thing, and you don't have to go on and explain why he said it or what he was feeling, because we know what he was feeling just by the way he says it. Um, Another one is insulting the reader's intelligence because they've already figured out what happened themselves based on the clues given. That's like where they say, um, I'm I'm going to church, and afterwards I'm going to stop at the grocery store. And then the author inserts that she needed to get some eggs for the breakfast. It's like, you don't need to tell us that kind of thing. They'll figure out that why they went to the grocery store, what she picks up there. You don't have to go into into explaining what the people said and why they said it. If she said she's going to the grocery store, you don't have to tell us again. Yeah, she's going to the grocery store because she needs to pick up some things. You don't need to say that. Make sure that what the person says tells the story. You don't have to go into all that. Get yourself, as an author, get yourself out of there. Don't tell them. Let them know. They know. Your readers know. Next one is overusing step-by-step descriptions. I see this so often. I say, Melissa's going, yeah, yeah. You don't have to explain every little thing. Like um, John went out, helped Mary out of the hospital, and he opened the car door and helped her get in. Then he closed the door. Then he went around the other side and got in the driver's side. He closed the driver's door. He turned on the car, and the engine started. Then he slowly backed out, looking both ways, and then he got out to where the road is before he could get on the road. You know, it's pretty boring. Everybody knows that how to get into a car. They know that turning the car turns it on, turning the key turns it on. One of these days, you can press a button, turns it on. Everybody knows how to start a car. You don't have to tell them that. And a lot of times people use the then and then. Then he did this. Then she did that. And then you don't need that. You don't need that. Just get right to the point. He helped her, Mary, get out of the hospital and into the car, and he started the car and they took off. It's just that easy. don't go overboard. You don't need that kind of overwriting. The next one is overused words. Beginning writers make a lot of mistakes of using certain words that publishers no longer want to see in the books that they buy. Now, I understand that traditional publishing is not the only viable way these days to get published, but you want your book to be so good, even if you're self-publishing, you want it to be so good that nobody will ever want to go back to the publishing books anymore. They want to buy yours. So you can eliminate unnecessary uh, words. Now there are particular words, and then there's some phrases. And I have what I call the fiction fundamentals. I've got like 45 different uh, flyers, I guess, about different things. And I want you to ask me for this one called overused words. And you can email me down there and I'll send that to you for free. And you can see exactly all the words that are in there, but just some of them are cliches and trite phrases. Um, he bought the farm, idioms and things like that get them out of your book. Don't need those. Um, it is what it is. There's so many that you can't even begin to think of them. But when they creep into your work, get them out of there. Now, if the character says it, and that's who they are, and that's the way they talk, it's okay in their speech, not in their thoughts necessarily, not in the narrative, just in their speech. Um, there's words like for a while in the ACFW, somebody decided that look was bad. It's just too trite. Everybody's using look. He looked here, he looked there. So they changed it. And then for about a year and a half, everybody was gazing. Now, there's a difference between a look and a gaze. So you got to be able to understand that if somebody looked, it's not a bad word. He looked over at her. Big deal. It's the readers would actually be taken out of the story more if her gaze flew to her face. It's like, what? How did it fly there? Was that like in a little airplane, or do they have wings? You know, it takes people out of the story. If you just say, look, they know, and they aren't even worried about it. Um, Another thing is how often to use a character's name and their pronouns. I have in the book that I'm editing right now, this person uses the character's name, the POV character, whose point of view the scene is in, 2, 3 times per paragraph. It starts sounding like a list. John did this, John did that, John went this. If John only knew, you don't need to do that. In fact, I suggest using the character's name only 3 to 4 times per page. The rest of the time, use their appropriate pronouns. And then also, don't begin consecutive sentences with a pronoun. He did this, he did that, he said that, he wanted to go here, he wanted to do this, and if you the way I do it when I'm editing and I find this, I go ahead and I take out everything except the verbs and the pronouns and adverbs, and then I write it out, and then I let them see this is what your paragraph is saying. He ran home. He did this. He ran there. He decided to do that. It's like that is not good writing. So do not start consecutive sentences with the pronouns. You guys are better writers than that. You can do it. You've got so many words available, every word in the world available to you to come up with ways to say something different. So make every single sentence different so that they don't follow the exact same formula. and then repeating phrases for effect. I've seen this a few times. Like uh, Mary ran down the hall, the very hall that her uh, that her brother died in, and ran. She opened the door to the room where something terrible happened, and the something terrible that happened was such and such. It's like that's poor writing, and they use M dashes to separate each of these things. The very hall where he died. It's like you already said he ran down the hall. Just she ran down the hall where her brother died 10 years ago or whatever. You don't have to keep, repeating these. And that kind of reminds me of like a long time ago in a, galaxy far, far away. That works in Star Wars, but you don't want to use those kind of things in your writing. It's not necessary. So anyway, if you haven't written that down, I'll give you one more second to write that down, Jeannie at novelimprovement.com. And I'll send you the entire list of words not to use. The main ones are just and very. There's rarely a necessity for either of those words. So it just cuts your writing down. In fact, somebody, I can't remember at the top of my head, a university did a study and they pulled out every unnecessary word and put them in another document. And they had almost 2 pages of unnecessary words from a book. So you don't want to make your readers read even one word that's not necessary. Keep that story going, keep them involved. Next one is information dumps. That's exactly what it is. Writers sometimes they show off the research that they've done, and so it's actually starts sounding like an encyclopedia or a Wikipedia area. And I've actually asked authors, "Did you copy this from Wikipedia?" And yes, I did. Well, that's out. You can't do that. It doesn't sound good. You are writing a story, not a Wikipedia piece. And I don't know how much, but a large amount of your research for like historicals or even things nowadays. You have to know what's going on and how to use certain words or what people say at that in this part of the country. There's a lot of research that you need to do, but a lot of that research is never going to show up on the pages. It's just going to help you write a more realistic scene. These are called information dumps, when you just dump on and people and it's actually like author intrusion too. The author is intruding on the story. By the way, this is what's happened. Do you see how, um, I've actually, it says a large amount of, if a writer must delete something for the sake of readability, you can paste it in another document titled deleted writing. That way you can always go back to it later. And if you say, come across another spot, go, what I said back there, some of that could work in there. And then you'd have it. So I know it's hard for beginning writers to delete anything that they did that is so awesome. But when it's just information, put it somewhere else and take it out of there and just sum it up. I read a book by a very famous author that was about that had the Cherokee Nation, and a white woman had been left on the prairie to die for whatever reason, and the Cherokees found her and took her in, and they treated her pretty well, and she was actually assimilated into that culture. Then all of a sudden, in the middle of the book, this author goes off on a lesson on the Cherokees. There were no characters. It wasn't anything in the book, but that but about what the Cherokees did and how they did and what they liked and how they, lived for years and years. And it's like, it was just an 8-page information dump. That person could have, woven bits and pieces of that here and there, without giving me a lesson. And you know what I did? Once I realized that this was what it was, I started going forward. I ignored it and went right to the next time that I saw a character. I didn't care about that. I know it's not that I don't care about Cherokees. That's not it. That kind of stuff it wasn't part of the story. Get me back. I got back to that story. I couldn't tell you everything that was said, because by the time I would have gotten to the end of it, I couldn't have told you what was at the beginning of it. So just keep your information down to a minimum and drop it in bits and pieces. Just if you have a bunch of information, critical information, cut it down, consolidate it into just 1 or 2 sentences that the readers will understand, and they're not going to skip over it. Sometimes even one long paragraph about a certain thing. Like I read a book about someone had joined YWAM, Youth for a Mission, and then it said the whole thing about what their mission was and uh, uh, how they accomplished it. It's like, pretty much everybody knows what a mission does. So consolidate it. Don't give them everything they need to know. Here's my favorite, purple prose. Oh my gosh. Beginning authors love purple prose. They just believe that they have to just open their hearts and let everybody see the magnificence of the sunrise or something like that. And it draws, all it does is draw attention to that thing, and it takes you out of the story. It's melodramatic, and descriptions of emotions, melodramatic descriptions of emotions are par for the course in novels. You do need to show someone just bawling their eyes out over something that happened and their heart breaking, things like that. But there are times that you're cheating yourself and the audience out of something authentic, gripping descriptions. So here, I think I've got one here. Anita stood at the window, letting her mind wander back to what Brad had just told her over the phone. Across the expanse of the ample backyard, the brilliance of the sun bounced deep orange hues off the fluffy cumulus clouds and ignited the sky in I don't know what that is, flurry of radiance. Then, like a giant kaleidoscope, it tinted a vibrant, uh, I think pink with purple streaks that played off the mountains like a child coloring outside the lines. In one last luminous dance, it did something to the final curtain call, took a final curtain call before finally exiting behind the majesty of the highest snow-capped peak. This symphony of vibrancy reminded Anita that Brad needed to pick up his shirts from the cleaners on the way home. I mean, you know, by that time you forgot what it was and who it was, and it's not necessary. It is totally interrupting the story. And then the back part, what on earth does him needing to pick up his shirts from the cleaner have to do with any of that? It's no, just watch the purple prose. Don't Purple is, I guess they call it that because it's usually a purple sunrise and things like that. Yeah, sunrises can be vibrant, and you can explain it in just like a few short words and still show the vibrancy. Then there's stilted writing. It means it's too formal and it interrupts the natural, gentle flow of the story. The reader has to sometimes, and I do this all the time, stop and reread it to understand what on earth are they saying. This is stiff, formal writing, and it's frowned upon in Christian fiction, and I think non-Christian. But many of today's fiction books are written at a lower than eighth grade level. You probably have heard that before. Um, so, so we don't want to write in such a way that the average American person, they say, you've heard, write to your audience. But a lot of people don't stop to think, yeah, I'm writing for women age 50 to 80. I'm writing to young adult women, but they don't think we're American people. Write to how Americans talk and think and act. Because if you're going overboard with these weird descriptions that we don't say, I would never talk that way. Why would you think that an average person on a book would talk that way? So let me show you something that you might be surprised at. Jane Austen wrote on about a 5.5 grade level. J.K. Rowling wrote a 6.7 in her first book and was at a 7.5 in the seventh book. Stephen King, sixth grade. J.R.R. Tolkien, 6.5. Ayn Rand, 6.7. Tom Clancy and James Patterson were slightly below the eighth grade level. And just for fun, the Affordable Care Act was written at a 13 grade level. No wonder the average person can't understand it. Just thought I'd throw that out. The average person, it's above their level of reading. So that's where we go. I'm currently editing this book that uses a lot of stilted sentences, and here's one. Hazel flecked eyes rested gently on Tessa, friendly surprise showing in the what's that word under there? I can't see it. The
Generous. And
generous
if you
mouth.
have the taskbar that's over your words, it shows people you can move that out of the way, like up top or something, if that's right in your way.
Oh, yes, I can. Okay, showing in the generous mouth, slightly parted. What? I never could figure that one out, what she's trying to say, other than maybe down at the bottom I wrote, Tessa's mouth gaped as John looked at her with kind hazel flecked eyes. I mean, but the way that's written, then the next one, a shadowy look came across his brow and strayed aside, lost in another time and place. The look was lost in another time and place. His brow and his eyes strayed aside. I mean, I'm serious. That is such poor writing. So this is my watch. This is my word that I always tell people. Sometimes simpler is better. Don't try making your writing too elaborate. Be enjoyable. Number 6. How am I doing on time, ladies?
Getting close. It's about 10 of.
Okay.
So but we start a little bit late. So
okay, and I just got a couple more left. So one is too much unnecessary description of the action. This is where the one about the car, getting in the car, putting the seatbelt over, fastening it into place, et cetera, et cetera. That's just one of the ways that you can describe too much action, and don't do that. Here's okay, that's the short one. I already did that one. I didn't realize I'd done it twice. Oh well. Dialects. That's one of my pet peeves. Two genres make up at least 1/3 of the Christian books right now: biblical fiction and historical fiction up to the 1950s. Now, to make these books sound more authentic, the authors will drop in. Let me move this over. Will drop in some the words, old like the flavor of the words by using like 2,000-year-old words, Scottish language, lots of Old West slang and names for old tools. This isn't a bad thing if the reader can somehow know what it is the author's talking about. However, if not well done, it can become annoying for the readers. A couple things that annoy me personally. about this technique are when the author doesn't include the meaning of the word in the narrative and instead decides to put a glossary at the end of the book. Who wants to go to the end of the book every few paragraphs so they can understand what the story is about? Then you have to go back and start the paragraph again and put it in context. No, the narrative often is written that way too. It's not just what they're talking about, what the people say, it's in their narrative. And this is a case of someone who made a trip to Scotland or Ireland or England to do research and just wanted to show how much they learned. Today, though, it's best to use foreign speech sparingly and then utilize it only if the reader understands the word. The author needs to remember that they are writing for the American audience. The last one is writing to your audience, use contractions. We use contractions. Lawyers, teachers, president, everybody in America uses contractions. But when you use past perfect tense, he had done this and I have had to do that. And he would, and it becomes, we don't talk that way. Write for the people that you want to reach. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Anyway, it says that one university study showed that by eliminating past perfect tense in a book, they were able to get rid of almost two full pages. That's that other thing where they got rid of things. I call that Jane Austen syndrome because many people can't read Jane Austen because of her formal speech. Yet I see at least one new author's book a year where the writing belongs in the 19th century instead of the 21st century. And then run-on sentences, that's what becomes a common error. Now, run-on sentence is not just a long sentence, it's where someone has spliced two full sentences together using a comma. It's just poor sentence structure. Here's an example by the comedian Groucho Marx. Only one man in 1,000 is a leader of men. The other 999 follow women. But he didn't, he's got a comma there instead of like a period or a semicolon. Here's another one. You can collect as many signatures as you like. The reservoir is still going to be built. It's a nice thing, but it needs to be written correctly. Those are run-on sentences. But if write in such a way that you don't need to use those kinds of things. Most publishers today don't like colons. Extra long sentences. This is my last one. Jane Austen, again, love her, but you have to understand and be ready and able to read what she writes. This is from Sense and Sensibility. I just opened the book and here's what I had. Their opportunity and acquaintance in the house of Mr. Pratt was a foundation for the rest, at once indisputable and alarming. And Edward's visit near Plymouth, his melancholy state of mind, his dissatisfaction at his own prospects, his uncertain behavior toward herself, the intimate knowledge of Miss Steele's and to Norland and their family connections, which had often surprised her. The picture, the letter, the ring, formed together in such a body of evidence. Oh my gosh. This is actually punctuated correctly. By the time you get to the end, you have no clue what he was talking about at the beginning. So those are the main things that we need for you to use these in techniques in your writing, and it's gonna be great. Thank you. Are there questions?
Oh, actually, there was one a little while back here. Let me do some scrolling.
I think she actually already answered it.
Oh, did she? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So it's actually like a twofold question. Do you think that writers underwrite because they're giving their readers too much credit for filling in the details? And then how can writers balance the details so that they're not under and overwriting, so that we're not making the reader feel stupid, but then giving them too much credit?
Right. That's a good question. There is a certain amount of information you must give, like characterization, what they um, I've got a basic uh, character chart. You probably need to fill out a character chart on every one of your main characters, at least the protagonist and the antagonist and the hero and heroine, right? Because that's going to let you know. The one I have, it goes as far as saying, what would this person have in her purse or in his pocket? Just these are things you just need to know. It doesn't show up, but when you know your character, you probably won't have to overwrite. But there are things that need to be shown in the first chapter. You need to show who the person is. Give us an idea of their age. Um, what do they look like? And you don't have to come right out. He was tall. He was 6'4", and he was this and he was that. No, you could just say, like if it's from the female's point of view, oh, he was at least 7 inches taller than her, and things like that. Just show us the basics, but don't come right out and say he was 5 foot, or he was 6'4", had brown eyes, very strong, beautiful, masculine shoulders and muscles galore. And you want to just drop things in. If you've got 2 or 3 things in a row that's description, try not to do that. Try to make it, you can drop that later on, maybe even in the same scene, but don't just write them all at once. He was this and he was that and he was this. So that's one way to keep from overwriting. But then underwriting, you have to remember the same thing. We need to know, we need to see that scene. When I first started writing, my first book was about a blind girl. And when she had to go live with her aunt that she didn't even know she had. And the aunt, this was historical, the aunt owned a saloon. So she is in the saloon. She got up early one morning and went downstairs. And so she was kind of feeling her way around the room. And I did describe that. Now I realize I didn't need to do that much, not as much as I did. So just try to think, if you were reading this book, would that part be interesting? Or how can you keep the reader's interest? And I'd say, for me, I use a lot of my own things. I hate the um, information dumps. I will pass them by as much as I can. And if I come across one while I'm editing, I will actually cross it out and say, shorten this to one sentence. So you just have to, it's something you learn. It's a journey to become a writer, and to become a writer that is good and knows what they're doing. But there's so much information out there these days. There's no reason why a new beginning author needs to, use these poor techniques, because there's so much about good techniques. There are blogs, there are books, there are things like this, there's so many conferences and things you can go to before you try to put that book out there. I just think that's about the only way to learn.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from anybody? If you guys want to pop back on, Jeannie, if you can stop the share, and I think that's also down at the bottom of the screen on that bar. There you go.
Okay.
Well, that didn't quite do what I thought it was going to do.
Didn't quite do it, did it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you have to go down to the bottom. There you go.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
So, yeah, if everybody wants to come on, and I know we had to have some people, or some people did have to leave for various reasons, but we've got a couple more minutes, and if you have any questions or comments, this is a good time to get those in the air. I think this is really good. I think it's also just important to even the one that you were talking about the sunrise and all of that, and of course it was hilarious about that, reminding her about the laundry. But some of that writing was very nice, and it was probably too long. But if you're writing for a real literary audience, or an audience that really is more what's it called? Like upscale? That's not right. Upmarket, I
They're
think.
more into the language with
Yes.
literary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You might want more of that, but you just got to know your genre. You've got to know your audience and write to that. Word length. Like if you're writing 100,000 word book novel, you can get by with a little bit more lyrical description than if you're writing a 50,000 word beach read, right? That's not the focus of people reading beach reads.
Right. If you even with that one that I showed, you can keep some of that,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
don't have to have so much. Even for the people who enjoy literary writing, that would still be a little too much. I
It would. It
enjoy
would have to be crafted a little bit more carefully.
carefully, a little
Yeah.
more using a fewer words if possible to say basically the same thing. It could, it doesn't have to be a whole paragraph like that one was. It could be made three sentences even. Um,
Yes.
I like reading old books like Jane Austen. I have her whole collection, but she does some of that, but not when it comes to, describing the sunsets and stuff. Hers are more about the people, than where she goes on and on and on about people and what they think. So yeah, I think even literary buffs would kind of go, really, at something that overt and
And
ridiculous.
again, because that last sentence too is like, okay, it could,
Yeah,
which turns it into a comedy, right? So it's like,
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
I
whether
know.
it meant to, I don't know whether it meant to turn it into a comedy, but that is what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually seen someone to do that, and yeah, it was hilarious. Especially when when you're reading those vast descriptions, you do kind of get into it if it's got a rhythm. Your
Mhm.
book has a rhythm, and the rhythm is your rhythm. There are times when I have actually checked. I've read a book that had such rhythm to it that I could actually tap my feet while I'm reading, almost like a beat.
Wow.
Oh.
And that one was starting to get a rhythm, and that's something to look for. If you can tap your tap your foot while you're reading it, and it's so smooth and it's so rhythmic, uh, that's a good thing. You can try to attain that. I read one huge book. It was like this thick. It was it wasn't fiction, but it was about a historical figure. And in the whole book, it was very interesting. There was this one two paragraph spot where I found myself tapping it that writing. The rest of the writing, this was amazing. It was something I wanted to mark so I could read again and again. So try to get your book so smooth that it's got a rhythm. And if it's got a lot of the fancy, the over the top purple prose, make sure that purple prose doesn't take you out of. Make sure you've got that rhythm that when you're reading it you can, like what I'm talking now, and I'm stuttering even. If you could just read it while you're tapping your foot, you got something. It'll be good. It'll get the reader.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions, comments, thoughts?
This has been a great session. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
practical too, which is always really nice.
And I
I
love
know a
the
lot of it.
examples.
I know a lot of it was probably re going over a review of a lot of things you guys already know. Hopefully, I gave you one or two little things that was different.
Good.
But it's good to see them in, all together and then contrasted with under and overwriting.
Yeah, yeah, that was different. That was unique. Whoever came up with that, was that you, Brandy? That was a great
Maybe.
idea.
Sometimes it's hard to know because it's a group effort, but yeah,
Oh,
I think it was Brandy. Yeah, that's really cool. So thank you. Thank you for being with us.
thank you for
Next,
having me.
yeah, we're really glad you could join us. Next week, Sophia Hansen is going to be with us, and she's going to be talking about, we're going to do a come right with us. So bring your brains, bring your imaginations.
Bring your
Um,
paper.
paper, pen, something to write with. We're going to be talking
Computer.
about flash fiction. So come write with us in writing flash fiction.
So
So
she's going to workshop flash fiction with us. Yay.
yeah, she did a workshop called the fundamentals. So FUN. She had that capitalized. The fundamentals of flash fiction for the Florida Christian Writers Conference last week. And I took her class and she did a great job. So proud of her. And it was really fun and really interesting. So we didn't do any writing in that workshop. So it'll be fun to do some writing and see what we can come up with our own little flash fiction, which is only like 1,000 words. So, it's pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. Anything else, ladies?
I think that's it for this week for this particular session, except for the after party,
Yeah, stick
which we'll
around for the
have.
party, everyone. And if you're watching the replay, we'd love to have you join us when we record, which we do on Tuesday mornings at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central, and you have to go around the globe to find your own time zone on that. But we'd love to have you join us here live. It's always a good time, and the after party is always fun too. And you can check out all of our videos, which now number more than 300 episodes. You can find those
Hey,
on our Writers Chat members Facebook group and Writers Chat Facebook page, or on our playlist, which is part of the Serious Writer channel on YouTube. So 3 different places you can find all those. So until next week, bye-bye everybody. And yeah, everyone here, stay here. And I can't find the recording. There we go.